It was unlike any script that I've been reading lately. We were just talking about it. Like it's kind of a movie that you don't see get made anymore. It has an older tone, but like she said, it does feel modern. And I think when I met Greg, the director, about it, Greg Berlanti, I thought we were gonna do this very like sort of pastiche sort of tone, where like a I don't know, like we were talking about His Girl Friday or something like that. And then he was like, no, I definitely want it to be you guys and like really play with it. And like he really wanted us to improv a little as well. And that kind of made it a little bit more modern and not so rigid. And I don't know, it just has like a really strange tone that I really loved. And also set in like a big epic setting of like our history and time in America.
Kelly is a very successful creative at an ad agency. And she ends up working at NASA because she's great at her job. And she is hired to basically like sell the moon landing to the general public, which is, it's sort of a mission that's fallen out of favor, and to rebrand NASA. And she, I think, does a very good job of it.
She definitely comes in and mixes things up in a man's world, and that's yeah. She just comes in like a bowling ball and just starts wrecking things, but wrecking
Or fixing things, I would
wrecking
say.
them and then putting them back together in a better way is where I was going. Cole Davis is my character, and he was taken from a few or a couple different like real people in the NASA program at that time. I won't name names because I don't want people to think that this is any amount of a nonfiction story. This is a full fiction fantasy in a time and place in America. But Cole he was a pilot, and he was a very good pilot, and he always wanted to go to the moon. It's why he came to NASA. Turns out that he had a medical condition that wouldn't let him go, and now he's going to take it upon himself to basically get all of his friends, his buddies, that are pilots themselves, and they're very close, and he's going to be responsible for kind of coaching them to get to the moon. And there's been some very tragic things in the history of NASA when they were truly, when I say what they were working with technology-wise, I mean, just go look at a car from 1968. It's all analog switches, and like I don't know how they did it. And he's got to hold all that up. And at the time, it was really, really bad. They were not winning this race, and he was feeling the pressure. And then a saving grace angel comes in and gets him the money that he actually needs to be able to do this, but kind of against his will. It's written in such a way, the words are great, like the dialogue's great, and I was really excited to kind of come in and do this very like stylistic, kind of close to the lines, and Greg really kind of gave us freedom to really play with it, and as long as we were staying in the pocket of like these characters and creating friction between the two of them, he really like wanted us to kind of take the reins off, and like he'd be like, all right, we did it by the book now, let's kind of like play around a little bit, and I found that really refreshing and kind of brought something really modern to this movie that is obviously a period piece.
I think Greg is he's such a champion for all of the characters. He really loves, I think, actors and performance so much, and celebrates, comedy and nuance, and he's just such a fan of actors, and so I think he really encouraged all of us to bring to the table like what we, these like fully realized people, and then would help us to dial things in. He's got a great like sense of comedic timing and just like timing in general. I think that's part of his like writer brain too, like just like hearing dialogue and like what works in his mind, like how like the rhythm of things. And as Channing was saying, like the dialogue is so, it's has a beautiful shape to it. Like the nuance is kind of all there written in, and I think for him it's really very much about like listening to things, dialing things in, and like working with the actors to like help them to have the motivation to get to where he needs them to go, as far as like the musicality of the lines. But he is such an incredible knowledge of film.
Yeah,
He
guy's
just
a pro.
yeah,
I mean,
he's incredible. I mean, he nailed the tone so much. It was also about finding, when we were producing it, it was like we knew what the tone was, the writer knew what the tone was, our studio knew what the tone was, but it was about finding a director that also like understood the assignment there and like could nail it at every step of the way, and he just elevated it.
movies are mirrors of the directors. You just almost in every single sense of the word. And this movie is so much fun, and it is so, in my opinion, smart and big. And that's just, it really is Greg. I mean, the guy's been doing it for so long, and mounting a movie of this size is kind of like shooting a rocket to the moon.
It's so unusual these days that a film is offered in theaters that has like an original story and has this kind of scope. Like it's a big movie, but the story itself is like this very intimate. It's like a character piece that's in this massive, like
Set piece,
huge set piece. Yeah, this big set piece. To me, I think getting to experience that in the fullest, like watching it on screen with an audience and get carried away with the film. It's like that's what, there's a certain kind of nostalgia there that I think is, and when I say nostalgia, I don't mean like an old-fashionedness that feels like, dusty. I mean, there's like a kind of magic, I think, to that tone of film that you just, it's not common now. And so I think being able to experience that in the theater it's like a wonderful night out,
I think it's really tough to reinvent the wheel in a way, like, and in this business where you've seen all the stories, and this was a real life thing that actually happened that we know about in our, American history, and we've seen movies about it. And this one is completely and utterly, undeniably its own movie, and it really does have its own vibe, its own signature, and I think to be able to see one of the greatest moments in American history done in a way that you haven't seen is worth going to the movie for.